they also there's certain features on camera often to make it look like I have features I don't for why they have interest on my invalidity. The constantly conspired about people in that person with throughout the society. They keep thinking that they keep calling themselves viable to have Bibles. They give me features I've never had. They claim that I've had features going back into childhood I've never had. They do this through my outpatient diagnosis where they falsely collaborate that has some other features other than the mental health diagnosis I've always had. And they try to add themselves on I've had harassment. They work with professionals, do it. My family does it as well. They seem to have a high dose of academic. They listen to features going back into teenage childhood, claim that sensations go into other features, situations where they try to manipulate that and try to add themselves on I've had harassment as they listen to evidence. Try to claim my life had other features for why they have these issues. My family features do the same thing. They just claim my life has these features for why they call this a thing. They may take like ways that I behave or the ways that I respond to or attitudes that I had and turn them into ongoingly inviolable things. They show signs of collaborate had mental health features, these attitudes in the past that I had features I didn't have, and so they constantly conspire to give it some feature it doesn't, and they do this, they pay into ever so I like to act personal to them to add themselves out of my this context through my place in society. They have a high jealousy with me. These people have a high jealousy with me, and they're inconsistent collaborators my life out of false context. Through my place in society out of harassment. Sometimes you're calling yourself, sometimes you keep calling yourself, claiming I'm the issue as you claim as you give my life some of their features of horror and cover your cunt was laser principles of horror. They also call themselves viable to my bodily sensation. So I try to get, sometimes you claim that you had opinion that you were viable, that you were viable after that, in ways you weren't before. Before that, you were claiming I was inviable in ways I wasn't when you had an opinion earlier before. When I've always been the same viable person. Sometimes you claim I need to live, but sometimes yet again claim my life has some other feature as a horror. Sometimes you're calling yourself viable to how I'm viable horror, claiming that how I'm viable is not how I've always been viable for horror. Is that my issue you want to sometimes you call that viable or my issue that your cunt conspired to live outside of physical. Sometimes you call your cunt would call your cunt viable. Sometimes you would call like that would ever benefit of the horror. You give my life some features of horror, your cunt viable. Sometimes you claim that your cunt would be viable to how my femininity would be viable to horror. I'm a born a woman, have interest in men. I take pride in my femininity. I'm an adult. Sometimes you claim my creativity goes into some other. Sometimes you keep claiming. Sometimes you're calling yourself viable time viable before. This is how I've always been viable. Sometimes you're claiming you're viable time viable before. So I've always been viable. I'm John David Lindsay's daughter. I mostly have the DNA. You'll see me mostly look like it. Sometimes you're claiming my creativities have some of their flaws, a horror, or that if I do have flaws, they're usually always light, like short found space. I usually have light flaws, so why I was viable.